Welcome back to episode 329 of the Guy and Guns podcast. I'm your host, Troy.
And I'm your other host, Doug.
We use this podcast to talk about God, guns, and the responsible Christian gun owners' interest. On this week's show, we'll be talking about what it means to become a man, to man up.
Man up.
Man up. We want to thank our sponsors. First of all, we want to thank Primary Arms. Primary Arms seeks to provide. Oh, wait, I was going to do something else. Too late. Not going to be able to do it. I can still do it. We're live. We can do it.
You can do it.
I can do it. We're not on anybody else's agenda by our own, right?
100%.
Let's see. Where did it go? Here we go. We're going to share this. There we go. I can't see my screen. All right. Primary Arms seeks to provide the best shopping experience for everything firearms with over 13,000 products, over 400 top brands. Primary Arms carries a complete selection of rifles, handguns, firearms parts, shooting gear, apparel, and more. With every order comes with a commitment to superior service, backed by fast shipping, and expert support team, serving freedom since 2008. Find out more at frn.deals/PA. And we want to thank Primary Arms. They picked us up for another 6 months of sponsorship, and we appreciate that. Just got the message from who was it, Krista, I think, that sent me the message last week or the week before last that they picked us up for another 6 months, and we really appreciate that.
Nice.
They next up is Farms Radio Network. We appreciate Farms Radio Network putting our show content out there for you guys to look at and listen to and check out. Also, if you've not checked out other shows on Farms Radio Network, please do. We need to be putting together a promo for us to put on the other networks, and they're going to start sending us some promos about the other shows on the networks as well. So we can cross-platform share. So check out other shows over there on Farms Radio Network, and let them know that you came over from God and Guns. We appreciate that. Also, Patriot Patch Co. Patriot Patch Company has all kinds of cool stuff, and I brought down some patches, and now I don't see them. I must have put them underneath something, but they've got some new patches out. Here's an. Are you ready for the Yeti patch? I don't know how old that one is. That one's in here, and we got stickers, and we got
the Yeti.
They've got shirts. They've got all kinds of cool stuff. Go check out all the cool offerings over at patriotpatch.co. And let Jake know that you came and you appreciate his sponsorship. He has been so gracious to me and Doug because of our interruptions in life, passing, death in the family, all those things that have occurred in the last little bit. We really appreciate their support, their monthly support, and also sending us cool patches of the month every week. You guys ought to check that out. They just dropped some really cool, off the wall stuff. Hello, Daryl. Daryl's been going through
There
the
he
ringer,
is.
guys. You guys pray for Daryl and his family. They have been enduring a lot of medical and just health issues. And Lord, please bless him and his family. We pray that you get him back on his feet out of that hospital. He's been there way too long, and we are happy to hear that happy to see him at least on here tonight. Well, this week's Guide and Gun activities, Doug. What have you been up to the last 2 weeks?
Well, let's see. On the God side, I've been doing my Sportsman's Day devotional and my hospital devotional when the pastor sends those out. On the gun side, of course, everyday carry. But man, I ain't done hardly anything. I have been moving, and it is about to kick my hind end, brother. I'm telling you. But I put a big dent in it last night, and
Deal.
yeah, it's tough when you just got the truck, and you go over after work and try to get what you can get and come back and unload that, and then you got to go back and get another load the next night. But I'm getting close now. We actually got the house on the market, and I was Daryl had commented on the picture I posted the other day. He said if it was in California, I'd get $2 million for it. I was like, well, I wish I could slide it out there for you. But
We're up by the roots and haul it out there, right?
I would. If I could get it out there, I sure would. Let's see, what else have I done? I did get to go pig hunting one night last weekend. I guess it was last weekend. I went, and all we saw was deer all night long and one rabbit that kept running out. But I tell you what, man, we set the I got the pulsar set up and the rifle set up in the bog pod death grip
Yeah.
tripod.
Yeah.
Had it set up. I had it turned on. I had it hooked up to a battery source. And then one of the guys that was with us, he just likes it's his hunting land, and he just likes to sit there in the blind with us and watch. He likes to connect his phone to my scope, so he did that, and he wound up. We set it up on the front of the blind, and I just had the gun pointed down range at the field we were watching, and
Mhm.
didn't have to touch it. Just sat there and kind of watch TV all night.
That's what I did the night I was down there last time. I just
It
sat
made
there and
it
watched.
it made it quite interesting, and
Yeah.
but it worked really well. I mean, the gun, I didn't get to pull the trigger on it, but everything worked fine on it. The scope worked fine. So I was like, heck, that's not a bad way to do it. The only thing was, man, it was cold. It got cold that night. And I had every intention of putting my little Mr. Buddy heater in my truck and taking it out there with it and putting it in a blind and warm it up a little bit inside. And I forgot it. And I didn't have nearly enough layers on for being out there sitting in the dark at night after the dew had fell and got a little bit damp.
Hmm.
But that's all right. We'll get them. We'll get them. But that's about it for me, man.
That's all in 2 weeks. All that moving took all your time, right?
Move, and it's still taking my time.
I know how it goes. Last time we moved, no, the time before last, when we moved from up here at the farm down to Glasgow, it about killed me and Krista. The kids were still pretty young. They weren't really able to pick up that much stuff, and no family offered to help. It was, and we moved as much as we could move every day. You know, every time I went to work, I took a load down and dropped it off the house, went over and unloaded it after work, like you, then went back up here to Magnolia, and then next day I'd take another load down, go to work, and after work go over drop it off. We did that for a while, and I was like, man, we just gonna have to hire somebody. And we hired a moving company to move all the big stuff, all the heavy stuff that I needed somebody on the other side to pick up, and they moved all
Mhm.
that stuff in like 6 hours.
Oh
they
yeah,
had they had it all down there and put in place, and I'm like, wish we could afford to hire them to haul all the rest of the stuff, you
to
know.
just do it all.
Yeah, well, I took tractors and bulldozers and bobcats and farm implements and all kinds of gear, four wheelers, all that stuff down there. And it was just continuously moving for, it felt like a month. And
I
I
tell
finally
you
got everything out.
what's horrible is, I moved a shop, a garage, and other stuff that we had, and I don't have a shop here yet. So
All right.
I had to put it in the garage. So I got a boat, lawnmower, tiller, and my wife has a little path that she can open the garage door and she can walk straight to the back to the garage door and go in the house.
I saw
And,
that.
and that's about it. Did I have the boat over here when you was here the other day?
No, you had, but your path was getting smaller. I could
Yeah.
tell it was going to be tight before long. But
Yeah.
no, that's
It,
the way with us. When we moved down there, all we had was a 2-car garage. We filled it up, and we had a couple outside sheds. One for the lawnmower, and then kids' toys was like on one of the other ones. And then I ended up building that shop. I had it the way I wanted it. And then we moved up here, and I don't have no shop, so I put everything in the barns. So all the tobacco barns and cattle barns, everything had stuff in them. Well, when I started actually doing farm stuff again, I had to move it around, and now I'm like cramped for space. And yeah, I'm going to build a shop. It's going to be this spring. I put it off for 5 years because of this. The cost just keeps going up. I'm like,
yep.
yeah, I got to do something. And so finally, I'm going to build a shop this spring. It's in
I
there.
gotta have one.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't even work on stuff because all my tools are 5 different places.
Oh yeah. When he told me today the tiller when I moved it in, I guess I leaked a little bit of gas off the carburetor or something. I don't know, but it had the garage smell like gas for a day or
Mm,
two. And she's like, "It stinks out there." I said, "Well, that's because I turned the garage into a shop.
yep.
Ain't a whole lot of choice in it,
All right. I
but it'll
understand your
get there.
pain.
It'll get there. It will."
So my God side, of course, daily Bible reading. Sunday before last, I served in security down at Calvary, and this recent Sunday, I attended Christ Fellowship down in Palm Beach Gardens, down where my mom and dad's condo is down there. So last week I went down to Hamcation on. I left down, drove down Thursday morning and stopped and visited with you guys. Saw your new digs, nice, beautiful house,
Thank you.
tall ceilings, and really nice trim work and things like that. It's a really nice place, and uh, I understand why Wendy was so happy about it. It's a beautiful place, but
Thank you.
enjoyed y'all's hospitality, and then went roll on down to Hamcation. Was there Friday, most of the day Friday, and it was pretty busy. And then Saturday was packed full of people, and spent the whole day Saturday pretty much there. Well, most of the afternoon. I didn't get to go early morning. I had a bunch of phone calls. Started getting phone calls on the way to Florida, and so ended up after Saturday. I left out Sunday morning and went on down to Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, where mom and dad's estate attorneys that drew up all the wills and trust and all this stuff, because there was a lot of confusion about stuff, and we were going back and forth on the phone and text messages, and I'm like, I don't understand this. So I just went on down there and spent several hours with the attorney on Monday trying to understand what I'm supposed to do, what information they needed from me, provided them some information. So it was worth the additional, you know, 2 days to be down there and figure it out and get that taken care of or get it going. It's going to be a long ordeal because I got to do a state, and I got to do probate in Florida. I got to do probate in Kentucky because they had property in both locations, and they were Florida residents, so everything has to start down there. So just be praying for me that I will keep my cool and be able to keep everything straight and understand everything and be able to convey everything in a way that makes everyone comfortable with what's got to happen next. So that was the ham stuff. I did pick up a few odd ends. I didn't pick up any big toys at Hamcation. I picked up a new bracket for my excursion. I've got a 4-band Yaesu 8900R in there, and the antenna I have for it, the bracket I bought at the last Ham Fest, wouldn't work on the excursion, and only place I could really mount it was on the bumper, and it was too low to the ground. It was getting too much ground noise and all that stuff. So I'm got a new bracket to put on the roof. Never have got it installed yet. Picked up some cable connectors and I forget what else. Just little things that you always need, you never have whenever you go to do something.
Hmm.
And so got all that stuff. I looked around, tried to find you a radio down there, but I didn't see any deals except for one. And Roger, uh, he was down there with me. K8 RPG is his call sign, and he was down there and going around through the swap meet. And I ran across a 7250. It's a Wires X Fusion, like a predecessor to the FTM 100 Yaesu, and it was a pretty good deal. I think they were asking 200 and got down to 165, and he went and popped on it. If he didn't get it, I was going to get it for you, but I didn't really see any other deals. I mean, everybody's prices are pretty high. I know radios, like everything else, have gone up. Inflation is like up 10% from last year across the board, and so I didn't really see anything awesome. Did get to play with some new cool digital SDR radios and things like that. So it was a fun trip. It was good for me to get a break, get away from all of the things I'm dealing with here, and so that's my radio going off. I thought I had turned it on. Um, but it's good that I was able to just get away and put some of that stuff behind me. But then in the middle of the trip, it just became more of the same phone calls from lawyers and makers and real estate agents and all that stuff. So it was good to get just out and see some warm air, warm sunny skies. I did spend Monday morning on the balcony of the hotel and just soaked up the sunrise and the sun and the smell of salt air, and it was just a nice short vacation. And then started driving back on Tuesday and got back in the wee hours, late hours of the night on Tuesday night. So But that's pretty much it on the farm. Gunner's been holding down the fort. He's been taking care of the cows every day for me for the most part for the last 6 weeks or so, just because I've been busy running different directions trying to get things done. EDC check. I've got the Glock 30S and Crossbreed Super Tuck and all the usual accoutrement. What are you carrying tonight?
Got the old Glock 19 sitting in here with the student of the gun sights on it, and it's actually nice to have my man room back again. Now I got my toys and stuff here with me. I actually got my 6.5 Grendel laying here on the desk right next to me, hooked up, getting all charged up and ready to go. I might get out and take a pop at one this weekend, maybe.
I was going to bring my rifle down and thought maybe we could sneak away and get to shoot something on the way back, but I thought, no, that's not going to happen. I got too much going on, but I need to go shoot something. I just got that itch, I need to.
Yeah, I was ready for you when you was coming back through, and I thought you was gonna come spend another night with us, and
Yeah,
you
I
said you
decided
were
to push on.
you manned up and pushed on.
15 hours on the road, baby. It's
That's
not as
all.
easy as it used to be.
No, that's a haul, man.
Yeah, I stopped every. I'm not like I used to be. I used to get in the car and I would drive till I got down to a quarter tank, which should be usually 5 hours or 6 hours, or until the
Hmm.
kids screamed or tried to crawl out the windows while we were going in the interstate. That'd be the only time I'd pull over. But when I was by myself, I was in sales for eons, and so I just had a bladder, would hold about as much as the gas tank, and I could drive for a long, long time. But as I gotten older, I've found that I will sit up like concrete unless I get up and move at least every 2 hours and stretch and walk around, or you get blood clots and stuff. You sit too long when you get old. So
Hmm.
I got out every 2 hours or less and got out, moved around, stretched. After I went through Atlanta, I went as far as I could stand it, and then I just had to pull over at a rest stop and go roll in the grass for a while because Atlanta just me and Atlanta don't like each other. Uh, and It wasn't as bad as it's been going through in the daytime. I did just get into Atlanta like at 3:30, so the traffic was starting to build going out north, but I was able to ride the wave out. It got pushed north and got up there and got, I don't know, 40, 50 miles, maybe 60 miles north of Atlanta, and just pulled over and walked around and rubbed on trees and laid in the grass for a little while and licked the pavement, stuff like that, just to get the, get the jitters out. I don't know if y'all have had to deal with Atlanta traffic. I know Doug thinks it's nothing because he lives up there nearby, but from being out here in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, I just don't like it anymore. I never liked it, but it's even more bothersome the older I get. But oh well, that was my trip. Comedy, you got a joke?
I do got a joke. I went ahead and changed it up. I had another one that I thought was pretty funny, but I was like, I might want to change that one up tonight. So I went with this one. So there was three buildings in town that were overrun by squirrels: the town hall, the hardware store, and the church. The town hall brought in some cats, but after they tore up all the files, the mayor got rid of the after he got rid of the predators, and soon the squirrels were back. The hardware store humanely trapped the squirrels and set them free outside of town. But 3 days later, the squirrels climbed back in. Only the church came up with an effective solution. They baptized the squirrels and made them members of the church. Now they see them on Christmas and Easter.
Or they could have preached on tithing. That would have gotten it rid
Yeah,
of them really quick.
that'll take them out too.
Yeah, preach on tithing, man. The church clears out quick.
Yeah, they gotta go.
Well, they just want to take my money. I'm out of here.
Did you make it home for Valentine's Day? That's the big thing.
No. Valentine's was Monday, I think, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think
What's the
Monday
day?
was
I
Monday.
don't even know what today is.
I don't know. I know I didn't
17.
make it back in time, but I'm not one of those guys that goes out and blows a couple $100 on flyers. I used to do that, and then the wife was like, "I'd rather have food or chocolate or something else." And last time I did it for mom, She said, "Don't waste money on that. You go to Kroger, get them flowers for about 10% of what you pay for the flowers."
Hmm.
Okay, Mom, I won't buy you flowers anymore.
So, so Wendy has been after me for the last 8 years, probably, to to shave. She
I
says it's
see
not
that.
duck season no more, and so Valentine's Day,
You
I
cut her
shaved it
off.
off,
Yep.
and she was happy, 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 and I sent her flowers too,
Wow.
and they did not get here until late in the evening. But it's a good thing
Oh,
because she was gone most of the day running around with grand youngin.
yep.
But but she got her flowers at the end of the day after she got home. So one for the good guys.
Yep. Good deal. You're a
Now I
better
just
man than I.
now I just got to. It's already started growing back in.
I told Chris, I was like, you pick anything you want, I'll go buy it. You want to go somewhere out to eat, we'll go. I'm like, I'm tired of guessing and just throwing money into the wind for things that she's not really interested in. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a heel. On this day in history, you got a sad day to remember?
I do. This one came up on this day in history 1 year ago today. American radio personality and Arthur Rush Limbaugh, who was known as ultra conservative and often controversial views, died at the age of 70. It's hard to believe
I
he's been gone a year already.
I know. Yeah. I had the app and I mean, in later years, when I worked, I was, running back and forth to work. I would listen to him on the way home a lot of times, his show on the podcast app.
Hmm.
But in later years, I just wasn't able to keep up. He just put out so much content. But yeah, I was sad when he passed, but he lived life to the fullest and did all he could do for his cause. And so,
That he did.
Bible verse today. Oh, if you've not yet liked whatever platform you're on, please like it and share it and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. We would really appreciate it. I keep being told by people who know how social media algorithms, all that stuff work. They keep saying you need to tell people to like it more. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Bible verse of the day, 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. And that leads us into the main topic tonight, man up. So, what was the progenitor of this? I started Bible study at Southfork Wednesday before last, and it's called Stepping Up, Call to Courageous Manhood by Dennis Rainey. And they got the book and the workbook. It's green, so it looks transparent to you guys, but it's got a green background. That's why. But started this a couple weeks ago, and it got me thinking. That we've got a lot of men out there that are still boys in a lot of ways. We've got a couple of generations of them. I mean, it's probably started at about the time that you and I left school, where the parents were making enough money that they were able to spoil their children. And I was a spoiled kid. I mean, I was a spoiled kid. But by and large, people had more money, and so kids got more cool things. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't get no cell phone. I didn't have,
Cell phone.
I didn't have, I didn't even have a phone in my room, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but didn't have a TV in the room. Didn't have a lot of things like that. But I mean, my parents did spoil me in the ways they were able to during the times it was, and I recognize that a lot of that had been to my detriment. Not that they were intending that; they wanted the best. And I'm not saying anything that people spoil their kids with now, and I spoiled my children horribly with things that most of the rest of the world wouldn't even be able to dream of. And because of the affluence of our culture of America in general, I understand there are pockets where people are struggling horribly, and I can't comment for everyone. But as a general thing, the preppies sort of started when we were. When we were still in school, we had the preps, not preppers as a preppers what we call it today, but the preppies. I remember they had the designer shoes and the certain kind of blue jeans and the certain kinds of jackets and the members only jackets and the and they had nicer cars and this and stuff like that. Well, that was sort of the, but that sort of became mainstream. It was when we were kids, it was a smaller percentage, maybe 5 or 10% in our area, but that's grown over the years to the point where kids now have so many luxuries and things. I think it's become that's so comfortable at home that they don't really want to leave. Uh, I'm speaking of my own children. I mean, I'm not trying to out them or anything, but I'm just saying that my children have rooms that are nicer than any apartment I could afford the first 10 years after I left home. I mean, I had bare bones and used stuff, and they've got TVs and computer systems and 3D printers and sound systems that would blow away everything I ever was able to afford as a child, and nicer vehicles than I ever had, things like that. And you want to do that. You want to give your children more than what you had. You want to bless them more than what you had. But I think in a lot of ways we've protected our children and isolated our children and pampered our children to the point where they're not really prepared. And I think this book
Yeah.
series goes through that. And I'm enjoyed the first two sessions so far. And I encourage you guys, if you have this offered at your church, or maybe if you want to start at your church, it seems to be a really well thought out, well laid out. It's a video type thing where you got like a 30-minute video. And then you've got, different topics talk about each night, and things that are presented in a perspective that you really don't think about, coming in at an angle that's sort of like, oh, I didn't think of it that way, and get you thinking about why is it that we have men that are 40 years old and still living in their parents' basement and not married and playing video games that with their friends they grew up in high school with. Why is that, and why are there so many women that can't find real men to marry? And I think a lot of it goes back to that we've just abdicated our responsibility as men and fathers, um, in a lot of ways, to television or to community things that we're just going to supplant that. And by the affluence, instead of the parents being home on the weekends with their kids and doing stuff, they would be on a boat somewhere on the weekend, or they might be, and they didn't take their kids with them, or be, out hanging out with their friends and going to ball games and stuff. Just different things that are distracted that they didn't really engage their children one on one with. I know that my grandfather on one side would wrestle with me as a boy, and I wanted to wrestle and tumble. I mean, boys just want to do that. My other grandfather was more set back. He would he would wrestle with you, but he would rather talk to you and explain things to you. And he was more of a sort of a mentoring type grandfather. Another grandfather was more like get you out, rough you up, and take you out hunting, fishing, and stuff like that. Both were great men. Both had both great features. But my dad, I'm not speaking bad about my dad either. He was just a hard worker. He loved his job. He loved what he did, and he would be thinking about work all the time. And whenever it was a weekend, he would most of the time work on a Saturday, just because he enjoyed it so much. And but we didn't throw ball. We didn't go fishing. I think I went fishing on a couple occasions where he took me out on a lake in a boat in the middle of June. It was like 100 degrees, and I fried and turned red and purple, and that was all I ever wanted of that. I didn't I didn't have the affinity to I didn't have the ability to set and be, because you had to be set and be quiet while you're fishing. You couldn't make any noise because it would scare the fish away. And so I would sit in the boat with my dad for hours just cooking, and then I'd be bored, and every time I make a noise, it was annoying. He was just not. That was his time to think, and so he was sitting there thinking, and I was sitting there, wondering why we're there. I think that in a lot of ways, and my dad was a wonderful man, great man. I'm not taking saying nothing back,
Yep.
but everybody has different things in different ways they relate. My dad was a thinker, and he wasn't a conversationalist. And so a lot of my upbringing and growing up was my grandfather's, because every summer they'd ship me off to one grandfather for grandparents for half the summer, and the other half the summer the other grandparents had me. And so in that way, I think my grandfathers plugged more into me about being a man, and they had different perspectives. They were both Christians and all, but I think that in a lot of ways that I was so busy when I was trying to make enough money for my children, that I was a lot like my dad. I worked a lot of hours. I ended up working a lot of Saturdays, not because I wanted to, but because of the necessity of having to do it. And so I think that, some of those things is where I neglected my children and not playing sports. I wasn't ever, I mean, my dad never played sports. The only time I ever went to knew about a kind of game, my dad got tickets from work to go to a Cincinnati Reds game, and they were playing somebody from California. I can't remember who it was, but they had light blue uniforms. That's all I remember. And I was about 8, and we went and sat on the sunny side of the stadium again in the middle of summer and cooked. And it was a double header. And so by
Oh
the end
yeah.
of that day, I never wanted to see another baseball game because I didn't understand anything about the sport. Dad was watching it, but he didn't really explain anything to me. So I really never had any interest in sports because Dad never played sports with me. But as boys, you and I, we grew up, and we just as farm boys, we was out in the woods, and so I would go out
Oh
in the
yeah.
woods and do my things, and I would go and play in creeks and stuff. But today, I see a lot of parents. Oh, I don't want my child to go out here; they might get hurt. I'm like, yeah, part of growing up is getting hurt. Part of growing up is making mistakes and falling down and busting your knee, or being stupid and carrying a glass jar to a creek to go scoop up, minnows out of the creek, fall into the creek and breaking and getting a big old scar in your hand. I mean, part of that growing up is painful, but it develops your character. And I think a lot of times we see, uh, and I'm just rambling at this point. Jump in here anytime, Doug, because I mean, you grew up in the same area. You know what we see nowadays, and I started putting down some bullet points of things. Now that's not none of the stuff I'm talking to you about out of this book. This book is much more refined and more detailed, and this guy's much more eloquent in this in presentation is much better. But I just wanted to bring up the subject because we see so many emasculated boys that are afraid to make decisions. They're afraid to take on responsibility. That are afraid to uh, fail. They're afraid to do things and mess up. Now, I can't say one thing about my oldest son. He was not afraid to fail. He was not afraid to make decisions. Uh, and, and in a lot of ways, he has learned a lot by the school of hard knocks. But he had to. That's just the way he learned. You could tell him things, but he didn't really get a grasp of them until he had to experience it. And so each child is different, and each child needs different things. Each boy is a different kind of a personality, and you have to see what things that they're interested in. And one of the things we got out of this last week meeting was you got to find out what your child's interested in and come along beside them and help them to develop that skill, develop that interest, develop that thing. Uh, but come on here, Doug. Don't we
But
take the whole thing?
well, I was gonna say the problem today is kids don't go outside. They don't do things like we used to when we were growing up. You know, when we got out of school, my dad put me to work in
Yeah.
the tobacco field, peppers, hay, whatever. I mean, whatever we were doing, we lived on a farm. And when we were growing up, man, we were outside all the time. There was
Hmm.
nothing better than getting your chores done and grabbing a shotgun and head to the woods to go squirrel hunting or
Hmm.
rabbit hunting. Or if my dad wanted to get me for doing something, he didn't have to whip me. I didn't hardly ever get a spanking for
Hmm.
anything. He would just tell me he'd get his fishing pole. He's like, "Well, I'm gonna go fishing. Sorry, you can't go this time. You didn't do what I asked you." And I'd be like,
Oh.
"What?" Because my dad, my dad
Hmm.
loved to fish. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he loved that better than anything in the world. But he also took me and John every time he went. We was with him,
Yep.
or I was with him.
Yep.
John necessarily wasn't always, um, but
John was different. That's what I'm saying. Each kid's
John was
different.
different. Yeah,
It's and he's still different. I love you, John. No, we're just playing on John. Go
no,
ahead, sir.
I mean, he loves hunting and fishing too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he back then it wasn't as much as what I did.
Mhm.
But I just stayed with it all the time. You look at kids today. What do they want to do? They get out of school, they run home and see who can jump on the video game first, so they can play a hunting game or they can play a baseball game or something. Man, we played baseball.
Mhm.
My dad worked at a cabinet shop all day long, and when he got home, I was sitting on the porch waiting. And as soon as he got there, I had my glove and his glove, and he would let me pitch to him. He'd let me throw, 25 or 30 every night when he got home, and he'd squat down after being there all day long and let me throw before dinner. And I mean, he had me at ball. I played traveling ball, I little league ball, you name it, I was playing. And I'm still that way today. I still love the outdoors. He instilled that in me.
Right.
I just don't think there's a lot of kids out there today that necessarily, not to say they wouldn't. I just don't think they have the opportunity like we had back then.
Mhm.
I mean, can you imagine a 10-year-old or 12-year-old kid with a shotgun walking through the neighborhood going squirrel hunting? How many calls they would get to the police department because
Well,
there's a kid
out here
walking
not
around with
as
a
much.
shotgun?
Out here
Well,
not as
just
much. Downtown, Chicago.
right. Yeah, again, that's a different culture too.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think, plus, I just think, you know, society today helps in the permanent wussification of teenagers
yeah.
of the kids today. Dude, I was watching again this morning, watching the news, which I'm trying not to watch as much as I used to because I just get so ticked off. But again, they were talking about a guy that's relating as a girl, setting all these records in women swimming. I was like, he's a dude. Why is that so, mind blowing that he's setting records? You know, he he probably got what, I don't know, that movie Meet the Fockers. I didn't know they gave out a ninth place ribbon. Oh yeah, they went all the way up to 10th. He was probably the 10th place guy on the guys swim team, but now he's beating up on all these girls in the pool. You know,
Participation award.
yeah, it's like you, your parents must be so proud.
Yeah. Well, there's just a lot of things that, and I'm going to start hitting some of these bullet points, but, in the Bible, it tells us to train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it.
Hmm.
And to the degree that is true, to the degree that the child understands the training and to the degree that they demonstrate it. So it's not just that you tell them, you have to show them. So it's not just what you say or what you hear in church, it's what you demonstrate outside of church. It's how you're held accountable to those ideals of the scriptures, or the ideals or the tenets of scripture outside of church. Because I can I can remember exactly when my dad veered from what it was that he told me that I should do. I would spot that instantly. Wouldn't see it myself, right? But I would see it in him because I was watching him. So when you have children, you can't talk it only. You have to walk it and you have to live it out. And I've failed. I'm not saying I'm perfect in it. I've failed, and the thing that I tried to do with my children that my father did not them. And again, I'm not bad mouthing my dad. He did the best he could, and he did great in lots of things. But where there was a failure, um, and not meaningful, but where there was a failure, I remembered those things, and I apologized to my children when I blow up and act like a child, and do something that is not honoring of God and doesn't reflect well on a Christian man. I've had to apologize a lot to my children. I've had to apologize to my wife where I acted like not like a godly husband, and I soon continue to because I'm I'm totally needy upon Jesus for forgiveness because I continue to trip and stumble because I will get running ahead of where I'm supposed to be and make those things and make those mistakes. But just as we train up children, remember that you have to make sure that you're walking that same walk that you're expecting of them. Because otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. You're just saying words, and it's just going to run off of them because they're going to see your behavior not reflecting what you're saying. They're going to think you're a hypocrite. They're going to regarding anything you say. Trial and error. Your children need to be pushed to make decisions.
Hmm.
It's important that you not make every decision for them. I in a lot of ways, I messed up with Tim in that I would a lot of times make decisions because I knew that he would sometimes make bad decisions, and so I would never give him the opportunity to fail in my presence. Others, would allow that to happen, and he, did learn things as he went along. But and I'm not knocking Tim. I mean, Tim was he grew up the way that he grew up, and he learned from things. And we're not going to be perfect. Our children are not going to be perfect. If you expect perfection out of your children, you're not looking in the mirror at yourself because you're not perfect. Your children are not going to be perfect. But if you can help them when they make those mistakes, not pound them into the ground, but say, I made mistakes, you're going to make mistakes, forgive them and move on. Sometimes they disappoint you and you have to, suck it up and realize that, again, you're not perfect. They're not going to be perfect, but help them to see the error of their way and help them to understand what they could have done differently. Not destroy their person, and not to destroy them or drive their ego down to make them to the point where they don't want to take a risk, because you don't want them to quit taking risk, because the risk takers are the ones that learn the fastest, learn more. And
Hmm.
the faster you can learn from your mistakes and move on and take another risk, then the more productive, the more efficient, uh, the faster you'll move up through life and achieve the goals that you want for yourself. And going back, it's another point that I've already sort of touched on. But let boys be boys. The boys need to go out and just knock the snot out of each other every once in a while, and go wrestle and tumble and burn up that energy. God made them that way, that you could go out and do that. And my mother would never let me rough and tumble my brother, because of course I was twice as big and three times stronger and all that stuff. But he was younger, and so we were just different personality types. And so out being out here in the middle of nowhere. Uh, uh, there were far and few between, unless you walked to some other friend's house, which in our case, between your house and my house, is 3 miles or so
Hmm.
through brush. And so there weren't a lot of close friends around, and but everybody was busy and stuff like that. But when you got to church and you went on camping trips and stuff with the RAs, with the youth group and things like that, we had some rough houses and some things like that. We used to shoot each other with what was it, hazelnuts, and throw walnuts at each other,
Oh yeah.
hit each other upside the head with dirt clods and stuff like that. Uh, and so it's part of growing up. Getting a black eye is fine. Now, beating somebody up with a hammer, that's different. But getting a rough and tumble, knocking each other down, is fine. But whipping out guns and knives on each other, that's not acceptable. But you need a man needs to grow in learning how to wrestle, learning how to fight, learning how to deal with situations as men need to. Those are things that just has to happen. If it doesn't happen when they're children, they don't know how to deal with a conflict as adult.
Right.
They won't develop that backbone or that willingness to stand when no one else will stand, and take a stand on principle, and draw a line. And not that we're supposed to be always in conflict, but there's times when you have to defend. There's times when you have to man up and stand your ground and bully people away, and things like that. And that's important for children to grow into that. They shouldn't be thrown into that when they're 18 years old and out on their own. They should be able to already have something to draw back on, like David and Goliath, right? We talked about that in the last week's, in this yesterday's thing. David confronted Goliath, but he'd already fought a lion and a bear, right? He'd already ruffled and tumbled with his brothers. I mean, these are things that he looked back on, was able to draw from. Well, I've done this, I can do that, right? I can stand up, I can be a man, I can stand up. And so it's important that, allow boys to take risk. As Doug and I, let them go out in the woods and hurt themselves, falling out of a tree and breaking an arm, and building uh, uh, whatever, building
Character.
shacks or character, and get dirty and grimy and ruin their clothes and rip their pants and all that stuff that boys just got to do. And if you're a single mother, I understand, but find a good mentor in the church. Find a good group of Boy Scouts that you can, or another group, or like in the Southern Baptist, we had the RAs, Royal Ambassadors,
Hmm.
that will take boys out on the weekends, go hiking, go fishing, go do something with them to develop that character, to develop that mentoring of men, Christian men that have good moral character to help your children grow. And that leads to the next step. There's a Christian mentor. As as the father of the house, you should be that mentor to your children, and you should be that mentor to their friends that come over. You should reflect the same qualities to your child and their friends that you're called to as a believer. And you should, stand up, be a man, take on risks, show them, teach them the things that you know. If you don't know enough, then go sign up for a class and all of you go to it and learn those things there, because there's a lot of things that I don't know about that you know about and things like that. So you know bringing Gunner down to go shooting and hunting in the forest down there in Savannah is a good development thing for Gunner, and he wants to come back. But there's, I can teach you. I taught him long range shooting. I've taught him handgun and weapon craft type stuff, and I've taken him to classes all over to teach him those things that I'm not as excellent at. And there are some things that they'll learn better from other people than you. So find mentors that can mentor your son. I think the greatest thing about the church that we grew up in, Southfork, was that the boys were sort of adopted sons of all the older men in the church.
Oh
If
yeah.
you were out of line, they would call you on it. They would say, "Hey, boy, come here." They grab you by the ear and say, "You ain't supposed to act like that. You need to and straighten you up." And that's important. It's important for a boy to know where the line is. It's important for a person, a man, to say, and a lot of parents are like, "Don't tell my son what to do." Well, somebody needs to tell your son what to do. If you're not doing it,
Right.
if somebody that is trying to look out for your son's long term well being isn't allowed to every once in a while say, "Hey, come back over here and pick that trash up you threw on the ground," or "Hey, you shouldn't be driving like that. I saw you driving down the road the other day. You're going way too fast. You need to slow down. You're gonna get somebody hurt." I've had the people in the church say, "Hey, come, I need to talk to you. I heard this about you. Is this true?" And call me out and embarrass the far out of me. But I realized that they cared about me. Looking back now, I realized those guys cared about me. They cared about my family. And so you should do the same thing when you see things happening. Do it in love. Don't do it in a hateful attitude. Don't smack them upside the head. But sit down and say, "I'm concerned about you. You're doing this," and I wish I had more people that said, "Hey, don't be doing that," because it would have saved a lot of pain in my life. Because people could see things that were going on and the stupid stuff I was doing, and I wish they'd call me out. I was trusted by my parents more than I should have been. But in some regards, and so, but I'm not blaming other people. What I'm saying is that the more that you're able to help mentor a child, help mentor your son, your grandson, your nephew, your niece, whatever it is, the more you're able to help them and help their parents, we all help support each other. And I've had your dad come up and say some things to me at church, and I was like, "Yes, sir." I understood. We go on camping trips and stuff. He'd say something. Yes, yes, sir. I understand. And I would come over to visit your house and be an encourager. He was always an encourager, but he was always expected a good hard work ethic out of you and
Yep.
expected you to stand tall and do what you're supposed to do and not shirk responsibilities and things like that. Accountability again is going back to what I was talking about. You got to hold boys accountable. You can't just excuse their behavior totally and let them walk off and just get away with stuff. You got to sit down and say, "Look, this is not acceptable behavior." And so we have to pour into the children and explain to them there's accountability. With my children, I was always like, "Look, you're on a trial basis right here in my house. Right here, there's really no real consequences. Once you leave my house and you become the age of accountability of 18, or whenever you do start driving, you're somewhat accountable at 16 or whatever, the consequences of your actions are much greater, to the point where they will put you in jail if you do something stupid to the point of harming
Yep.
someone or whatever." So let's learn all the bad stuff here so you don't have to learn it where it's really expensive and it could cost you to spend a lot of time behind the wrong side of a bars or something like that, right?
Exactly.
So, but hold them accountable. Expect a lot out of your children. Expect a lot of your grandchildren. Expect that they should be held to a standard. If you don't, will prove the point for you later on. And then again, hard talks. There are certain things that men need to sit down with boys and explain to them at a certain age. The pitfalls that lay before them, the things that the devil will always use for boys, the troubles with pornography, the troubles with alcohol, the troubles with certain, with all drugs, all those things. If you don't tell them, they're going to assume either you don't think it's a problem and don't have a problem with it, or that uh, you're doing it yourself or whatever. So you got to sit down and talk about the hard subjects, the birds and the bees. You got because if you don't tell them, they're going to find it somewhere. It's probably going to be on the internet, and they're probably finding out a whole lot younger than you think they are,
Oh,
unless you got some kind of blocker stuff on your internet. They're going to find out. Well, our thing was the school bus. They found out all kinds of stuff on the school bus. I mean, we did as children, but man, what my son and my daughter, my oldest daughter, before we finally took them out, put them in Christian schools, and not that Christian schools don't have it too, but you would find out things they were exposed to. I mean, my oldest son was being given whiskey on the bus and dip and stuff. And I know dip was prevalent in our day; it wasn't a big deal back then as it is now. Uh, but now, I mean, well, I remember when I was in high school, people offering me pot in the football locker room, and there was guys going out and smoking pot before the game. I'm like, how do you think that's going to help you? I mean, even at that age, I was like, how do you think that's going to help you perform better? Because it's sort of like a relaxing downer stuff. Oh, you don't feel the hits and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I ain't doing that stuff. But if you don't tell your
yeah.
children about that, if you don't explain to them when they encounter this stuff, they're not going to know what to do. They're going to most likely go along with the crowd unless you've developed them into really good character already. So have the hard talks and then just explain to them at some point, and this applies to men as well. You just got to do it, right? There's jobs that you have to do as a man or as growing into a man that are nasty, they're awful, they don't pay enough, and all that stuff. But you just got to do it. You just got to step up to the plate and do what's got to be done. The Nike commercial, just do it. I remember I took that on as a young man in my 20s, and I was asked to do things that I didn't want to do. I just said, just do it, get it over with.
Yep.
And when we had our first baby and that diaper came, just do it.
Get
But
get her done.
sometimes you gotta go through it. You gotta deal with it, right? You gotta hold the line. You gotta do what's required of you, even if it scares you to death. Now, you can speak more to the military side because I never joined the military. I toyed around with it, but I never did join the military like you and Fred and John all joined up, and Paula and all of the gang just about from South Fork almost all went in the military. Uh, it was I wanted to, but I was too spoiled. That was probably my problem, and I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to give up my ability to make my own decisions. And the thing that I can remember, the thing that got me was that I became property of the U.S. government. When they asked me to sign that part of the form, that's just where I was like, I don't know if I could do that. But stepping up and serving your country, that is a big ask of a man, and you did it, and so
I
did
did.
many of our friends. Uh, but how'd you walk into that? What was your motivator? What was the things that drove you to take that stand and go to serve the country?
Initially, I was tired of milking cows for a living, honestly, and there wasn't a whole lot else to do. And it's like, hey, man, I get out and see a little bit of the world, learn some stuff, learn a trade. Because me and school did not get along, so
Hmm.
that wasn't much of an option for me. And I was like, I got to do it. But once I got in, loved it.
Yep.
It was awesome. And and I still, even at work today, being in the military, I tell you, I have standards that my guys have to follow. They don't like it, but
Right.
they have to follow it. One of my biggest pet peeves is showing up late for work. If we always said in the military, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
Right.
Well, there's nothing that gets me fired up faster than we have a stand up meeting every morning at 8 o'clock, or Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 8 o'clock. There's nothing worse than one of my guys come walking in, bebopping in 5 minutes after whatever we're already going, doing our meeting, talking about what we're going to do for the day and stuff. But to this day, I've been retired for 20 years. Yeah, more than that maybe. But I still follow that. I get to work every day at about a quarter after 7. I don't have to be there until 8 o'clock, but I like to go in. I like to get my stuff done. It's quiet. Nobody's messing with me. I can get some stuff done. And I put that work ethic. Well, my dad instilled that work ethic into me as well.
Hmm.
Because I learned.
Yep.
It's easy to procrastinate and not do something. Mowing the yard. My dad would give us a chore list we had to do. Mow the yard, whatever.
Hmm.
And I tell you, it didn't take but once or twice when my dad said, get the yard mowed. You got until Tuesday to get it done. Tuesday afternoon, he'd come home. The yard would be mowed. When you gonna mow the yard? Oh, I'm fixing to start right now. Okay. And he would go grab his fishing pole, and I like, oh, we going fishing? He goes, no, I'm going fishing. You're gonna mow the yard. Mm. When my dad told me to do something, I did it because I knew he would use that against me later
Hmm.
because he knew I wanted to go with him. So I didn't play that very often.
Yeah. I can remember my grandfather, Leon.
Hmm.
He was probably the hardest working man I knew in my life growing up. My grandfather on my mom's side, he was hard working, but he would work hard, then he would play hard. Well, my grandfather, he worked hard. He hardly ever played. But
Hmm.
I would get out. Get off the bus, and he'd be sitting there in the truck. Come on, let's go. I like. I need to change clothes. Ah, you got time for that? Come on. And
Come on.
he worked me till dark. And I mean, like almost every night. We'd come home and Grandma would have something cooked, and I would start to go in there because I wouldn't eat lunch because I knew Grandma would have something cooked when I got home from school. I'd go in there and start to eat. Say, "Come on, you gotta go." And Trevor go in there and sit down and eat. I had to go work, but the funny part about that was, I grew up. My grandfather always was fussing. Oh, yeah, you too slow. You too slow. Or, you need to pick it up. You need to work harder. You need to work harder. My dad was like, "Come on, we gotta get this done. Gotta get this done." And just rush, 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 rush all the time. When you worked all the time till it was done. It wasn't that you got tired, you stopped. There wasn't no breaks. There wasn't no
Mm-mm.
go in the house. You had to go bathroom. Go around with that tree. Let's go. And that's just the way that that my grandfather, my dad, when I worked with him and stuff, uh, it was just that push to get it done, to do it right, to get it done, and not complain, not grumble, just knock it out. And then when I went and left home, we went to college. I was going to U of L, and I was going work at UPS at night. I walked in there and said I had farm experience. They wanted to know what kind of farm experience, and I told them I drove combines, tractors, and all kinds of farm machinery equipment, and knew how to operate all that stuff and threw hay. And they go, "Okay, you're hard." Before the interview was done, okay, you're hard. And what they said was, the farm boys they outwork everybody else like 8 to 1.
Hmm.
So you can put one farm boy on a crew, and they can do about the work of 4 people. And that's what they did. They put me on a crew. I had to do the work of 4 people. But what I thought was my all the time growing up that I was a slacker or lazy. I wasn't fast enough. That everybody else was faster than me. I got to UPS, man. I was a superstar because it's just the work ethic was totally different. Even
Exactly.
a slacking farm boy, according to my grandfather, was a better worker than people that had no growing up on the farm, had no experience of hard labor, of having to be pushed and just finishing a job. And I can remember sitting there talking to guys. I was like, "Come on, let's knock this out. Let's get this done." And they sitting there, "Oh, I'm tired." I'm like, "Dude, you're only here 3.5 hours a night. Let's
Right.
knock this out and go home," kind of thing. And they're just, "Oh," but it's important to teach your kids work ethic. It's important to teach your kids the value of hard work. And I know with my oldest son, we kept giving him more and more chores. Man, when he was 18, bam, he was gone. Same as you. So when you kept on getting more and more chores, like me, when I was 18, I wanted to get out. I mean, the day after I graduated from high school, I was in real estate school, learning to get my real estate license because my mom had a real estate company, and my dad had me taking AutoCAD classes back at going to Western, taking AutoCAD classes because he wanted me to be an engineer. And so I was taking classes for real estate and I was taking classes for engineering. And so I was trying to do both of those things. And I was trying to go to school at the same time at ECC, which was a UK extension at that time. And so I was so busy, I didn't have time to get in trouble for his first 2 years. And then when
Mm.
I moved off and wasn't working on the farm or for dad, because he started a company to keep me busy called American Thrust, which was machining. So I would come home I did this in high school too. I would come home from school, and after Papa got done with me, and then I would go out to the shop and I would pour these molds and make these thermogenic plastic parts. And then I would take those parts and put in a machine center, and I would run a mill, and I'd run a lathe, and I would drill holes, and I would make them into pallets for conveyor systems that he was designing. And so that's what I had to do that at night before I went to bed. So I'd be getting bed 11 o'clock at night, and then next up in the morning going back to school. But I did that in college as well. So I was doing that. I was selling real estate during the day. I was working there at nighttime. And so, I had 3 jobs until I started working UPS full time. They only had 2 jobs and full time school. But it's important that you're pushed. It's important that you're pushed to your limit, and that I think, are doing a poor service to our children that we don't expect more out of them, that we don't push them, not to be mean, but to teach them that work ethic, to teach them what they're actually capable of. I mean, the things that my dad taught me have served me well over the years. The things my mom had taught me, and my grandfather taught me, all those things were skills, and I was able to go into many different uh, careers if I wanted to.
Hmm.
I remember whenever I started working at my dad's plant when I got out of college, and I went over to the machine center and just started running. If I needed a part, I would go over there to the break and bend something and drill holes and tap it and just go make the part and then go back over and put it on the machine. And people are like, how you know how to do that? It's like, my dad started teaching me how to run a mill when I was like 10. So all these things are skills any skills you possess, try to teach those as a kid. I try to teach my children as many skills as I can, because the more skills you got, the more valuable you are. And so, and push your children, push them to learn, push them to do things that they don't want to do, and you might make them mad, and not to, but again, for their benefit, to make them grow. I can remember my parents put me on a plane and sending me off to Chicago to come meet them. And by myself. And I can remember my dad when I was 16 having me drive to Mexico. He had me drive the whole trip, and we drove to Florida. And I was like this, but what it was doing is teaching me how to do things that a lot of people my age didn't do. And when John went to the Air Force and got transferred to Bangor, Maine,
Yeah.
your mom and dad said, "Hey, would you?" Because I went with Fred. I drove with Fred out to California and flew back when I was 18. I was used to traveling and flying and making arrangements. And I would call, I was 18 years old, call the I forget what they call them back then, the trip planners, where that's where you got tickets back then, the airplanes. And so I called my dad's office, person who scheduled their flights and stuff, and said, I need a flight from Los Angeles back, not Los Angeles, San Diego back to Louisville on this date. And so she booked the tickets, and I went and picked them up. Well, not me 18-year-olds back then, because my parents pushed me and explained to me how things are done and made me go to the stores and buy stuff and maybe go do those things. It develops that ability in your children to take those risks, to understand that they can make decisions. They can just decide to do whatever. The more things you push them to do outside their comfort zone, make them uncomfortable. Make them uncomfortable with that. They say, "Hey, I'm going somewhere else where I don't have to do as much," but then they'll show up with more skills, most likely, than their counterparts. And then, your parents asked me to go up with John to take him up to Maine And that was a great trip. We drove all the way up to Maine. Never been to Maine before. Flew
Mm,
back. Got to meet Stephen King on the airplane between
yep.
between Bangor and Boston. That was a great experience. All those things I would not have got to do if my parents hadn't pushed me out of my comfort zone. I didn't even ask my parents' permission to go to California. I was 18. I was selling real estate. I just told the secretary, "Hey, I'm gonna be gone about 3 4 days. I'm driving to California, and I'll be back on this date." And took my brother. I was supposed to be babysitting my grandparents' house. Said, "Here, you take care of him. I'll be back." But it's important that you push children, that you expect a lot out of them, that you lift them up and give them those skills they need. We're going way long here, but last thing I want to talk about is to take on the mantle as a father that God has given you. If you've been blessed with children, or if you're not blessed with children, but you have grandchildren, or nephews or nieces or whatever it is that you have in your life, take on the mantle of being a man to teach those things, those skills to those children, because outside of you, maybe they never hear those things. They're never taught the things they need to know. They're never encouraged to go after their aspirations, their dreams, and to get out of the basement and quit playing video games and get a job and find a girl and get married and all that stuff. Because we've seen a whole lot of people that are just waiting and not knowing what to do. I think they're just have paralysis. They just can't move forward. So do it in love. We're way long, so we got to wrap this puppy up. Primary Arms, you guys please check out Primary Arms and let them know that we appreciate their sponsorship if you have the opportunity. And also want to, if you want patches and stickers, we got those up here. We've got a Subscribestar link if you guys want to send us some love. It's subscribestar.com/God and Guns podcast. It's dash guns. Then you got two, and then we got Armed Citizen, and then we'll be getting out of here.
Yep. PowerTac lights. Hey, if you're looking for a bright light, you've heard us talk about it. If you need one for a weapons light, headlamp for hunting, or just a flashlight for every day or in your vehicle, go check our buddies out at PowerTac Lights. They have them. Use our promo code God and Guns, and they'll give you 40% off of whatever you find that you like, and you will like them. Go check them out at PowerTac.com. Also, Crossbreed Holsters. Hey, if you're carrying a gun on your person, in your vehicle, or got one next to your bed, Crossbreed makes a holster for you. So go check those guys out. You've heard Troy and I talk about it. We both carry a Super Tuck Deluxe. I also have a Drop Slide. I have a Freedom. I even got a chest rig for my 44 Magnum now that I take hog hunting. So whatever gun you got, pretty much Crossbreed will make a holster for you. So go check them out at crossbreedholsters.com. Use our promo code G&G over there, and they'll also give you 10% off just for listening to the show and mentioning us. So check our buddies out.
Good deal. Armed Citizen, what we got tonight?
Hey, this week's Armed Citizen comes to us from Lakeland, Florida. A resident of Lakeland, Florida home stood his ground when an alleged robber forced his way in on December 14, 2021. The incident began around 12:50 p.m. that Tuesday afternoon when a stranger walked up to the home through the backyard with a shotgun in his hand. Now, see, at home, we wouldn't have thought nothing about that, Troy.
Well, if they walked up my backyard, they might.
Well, true. The armed intruder then grabbed a flower pot and threw it through the glass door. The commotion alerted the resident, who quickly went to investigate the source of the breaking glass. It was then that the resident came across a 42-year-old alleged robber within the home. The resident drew his firearm and shot the intruder 3 times, sending him fleeing into the backyard. When authorities arrived, they found the stricken man in the backyard along with the shotgun. He was taken to the local hospital in critical condition. Detectives also sourced video surveillance footage of the alleged robber entering the backyard. Polk County, Florida Sheriff Grady Judd said the homeowner did exactly what he had a right to do. I commend him for protecting himself and defending his home. Amen. And that comes to us from clickorlando.com in Orlando, Florida.
I was just down there.
You are.
Man, Orlando has grown a lot. I tell you, it's a mega city now. It's starting to resemble more and more Atlanta. All right, we're going to wrap this puppy up. It's getting late in the night and people got to go to bed and go to work tomorrow. Send your feedback to troy@gunspodcast.com or
Doug at GunGunsPodcast.com.
please tell your friends about us. Leave us an iTunes review. Like us on Facebook. Like this post. Like this wherever you're at, please. And share it. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube. And you can find us on Instagram. We have a Wimkin page and a personal page for me and a Rumble account, which I still haven't got going. And you can search for us on MeWe. Our website is guidinggunspodcast.com. So until next time, Doug, have a blessed week.
And keep your guns close, but keep your Bible closer. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, guys. We appreciate y'all being here, and we will see you guys hopefully soon. Adios.